Now, friends, we've come to the end of another season here in the Gulf Screen Guild Theater. A happy one for all of us, I assure you. And on this occasion, we're honored by a visit from one of the best-loved people in all America. She's here beside me now, Hollywood's favorite lady, Mary Pickford.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, my friends. I'm here tonight on a very important mission. I come not as Mary Pickford, but as a representative of the entire motion picture industry. Tonight, you know, marks the end of our third season of Gulf Screen Guild Theater broadcasts. 3 seasons of accomplishment. During the past 3 years, Gulf has contributed generously to the Motion Picture Relief Fund, making possible the building of a home to provide for the aged and needy of our industry. During this period also, Gulf has helped raise the standard of radio dramatic entertainment by the intelligent presentation of motion picture stars in carefully written, skillfully directed stories, enabling the stars to bring to the great radio audience the values of personality and performance that made them famous on the screen. For these reasons, the motion picture industry awards this silver plaque to the Gulf Oil Companies. I'd like to read the plaque's inscription to you. It says, awarded to the Gulf Oil Companies for eminent achievement in furthering the advancement of the allied arts of motion pictures and radio through the medium of the Gulf Screen Guild Theater. The plaque is signed by Edward Arnold, President of the Screen Actors Guild, Sheridan Gibney, President of the Screenwriters Guild, Frank Capra, President of the Screen Directors Guild, and Y.F. Freeman, President of the Association of Motion Picture Producers. May this always be a symbol of the high regard in which the motion picture industry holds the Gulf Screen Guild Theater. I came across a poem the other day by Louise Knight Wheatley, cook, called Teach Me to Love. It seems rather appropriate, and if you don't mind, Mr. Height, I'd love to read it now.
By all means, Miss Pickford.
There was a time when in my daily prayer I asked for things I deem most fair and necessary to my life. Success, riches, of course, and ease and happiness, a host of friends, a home without alloy, a primrose path of luxury and joy, social distinction, and enough of fame to leave behind a well-remembered name. Ambition ruled my life. I longed to do great things that all my little world might view and whisper, wonderful. How blind we are, until thy shepherd's rod of tender chastening gently leads us on to better things. Today, I have but one petition, Lord. Teach me to love. And teach me, Father, how to love the most those who most stand in need of love. That host of people who are sick and poor and bad, whose tired faces show their lives are sad, who toil along the road with footsteps slow and hearts more heavy than the world can know. People whom others pass discreetly by or fail to hear the pleading of that cry for help amid the tumult of the crowd. Help me to seek and find that which they thought was lost, to speak such words of cheer that as we pass along the wilderness shall blossom into song. Our love divine, how empty was that prayer of other days. That which was once so fair, those flimsy baubles which the world calls joys, are nothing to me now but broken toys, outlived, outgrown. I thank thee that I know those much-desired dreams of long ago, like butterflies, have had their summer's day of brief enchantment and have gone. I pray for better things, Thou knowest, God above, my one desire now, teach me to love. Thank you, and good night, all.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Cecil, Sam, all of us at the head table, and my friends of the industry. I, too, have known Cecil a very long while. In fact, I think I'm probably his oldest friend in the room. Because, you see, he and I were in the theater together. We played in the Warrens of Virginia for David Belasco, and his brother William wrote the play. It was called, as I said, The Warrens of Virginia. And I played Betty, and for many years Cecil called me Betty. Mr. Belasco always did. I can go back there so quickly, it's just a minute ago. I can see Cecil breaking through the doors and declaring to his family that the Yankees were coming. Frank Heenan played our father, and those were great days. That preceded my going into pictures. When Cecil's brother was asked by David Belasco where I was, he said, "Well, Governor, I'm sorry to have to say," he said, "that little Betty is lost." He said, "What do you mean by that?" He says, "She's gone over to the Galloping Tintypes." He said, "And for one of her youth," he said, "she's a stubborn little thing." I think Sam can attest to that also. But don't mistake me in saying that. I have great admiration for Sam. He's a warrior, and so am I. I think he's contributed greatly to our great industry. He has courage. He has good taste. But I'm not here to talk about Sam. I'm here to honor Cecil B. DeMille, who's a credit to our industry, a source of pride for everyone in this room, in fact, for all of us in this community. And it makes me very happy that the city of Los Angeles has seen fit to honor him. I played under his direction 2 pictures. That was back in 1917. We first did a picture called The Romance of the Redwoods. Elliot Dexter played opposite me. And then we did The Little American. And it was just the time that we went into the war. I have to laugh at the people. They said, "Well, Mary, you were lucky. You were in before the high taxes." Well, it might interest you to know that in 1917, I think it was April, wasn't it, Cecil, that we went into the war? They made the taxes retroactive to January 1st, and I paid more than 50% of my salary, and was glad to do so, as I am today, as painful as taxes are. I'm glad that I can pay them and live in this great country, in this wonderful California. And Cecil, I know that everybody in this room, and even those who are not here, will join me in wishing you every good, every success and health. And I join with the ladies and gentlemen here in a prayer that God will spare you many years to come, and that you will continue to make great pictures like the 10 Commandments. God bless you, Cecil.
Look around you on the sets at your own studio. Go and sit beside any old actor on the lot and let him give you a yarn. You'll find out what Hollywood really is then. So, obedient to Miss Pickford, because she is one of the main parts of this story herself, I went on the sets at my own studio, found an old actor sitting back in the shadows, and sat beside him. And this is the way our conversation ran. I'm a sort of radio commentator, and I've got to get a story first. And I thought perhaps you could tell me a yarn.
Well, lad, I'm not very important to you, although you may have known my name once, but it doesn't matter.
Why, I used to save my pocket money for weeks to see your pictures. Mary Pickford certainly was right.
What do you mean, Mary Pickford certainly was right?
Well, the other night I went up to Pickford to discuss my feature story with her, and she told me that if I wanted real drama, just to talk to any such person as you.
Well, what did you want to find out?
Well, frankly, I wanted to find out about a strange race of people that has always been in the passing parade, but never a part of it. I wanted to find out the private life of the actors and actresses that the country has loved once and then cast aside, like the proverbial broken doll.
I think, Mr. Nesbitt, I would be classed as one of those broken dolls if it weren't for my getting a really swell bit in this picture. But let me try and help you get your story.
Yes, and by golly, if we can use it, we'll broadcast it on January 1st, 1939.
Well, it's a simple story. It's the story of an actor. His name was Michael Craven. But this is the way I think you would tell the story on your passing.
Actors are a strange race. They've always been a race apart. We went in and we paid our dime or our dollar and we saw them behind the footlights or on a glittering screen. But once there was a boy named Bill Malott. And because he dreamed of someday becoming a great dramatic star, he read a lot of books about the theater, he studied voice, and of course he played Romeo in his high school graduating class show. But the boy was pretty good, tall, graceful. His voice was rich and warm even at the beginning. But soft, what light from yonder window breaks. It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. And after the show that night, to the boy in his little dressing room came a man wearing a derby.
All right, kid, you look good. You probably ain't so good as I think you are, but I think you got something the fans will go for.
What do you mean?
I mean, I handle the talent scouting for a picture company. If you're willing to forget Shakespeare and take orders, maybe you can make a living at this.
You mean a screen test?
Yeah.
Golly. Think of getting paid to act.
Now, listen, fella. First of all, we got to get you a haircut that doesn't look like they ran a lawnmower over your dome. And then we'll,
Yes, Bill went to acting school on the set, and he got paid for it. They gave him the name Michael Craven, and they taught him what it was to work, not play at acting.
For heaven's sake, open your mouth wider. The vowel sounds need room to operate in. Come now. A.
Trying to it, Michael. We'll keep trying this step until you do it right. An actor has to walk properly. You walk like a camel.
Right, that's the stuff. No, you aren't playing Hamlet anymore. You're in the movies now. I'll try a lighter makeup base. We'll bring that tough-looking chin of yours up with a little highlight.
Yes, they took Bill Malott, high school boy, and turned him into Michael Craven, moving picture leading man. And in a year's time, they called him up to the legal department.
Hello, Mike. Say, Mr. Dave was in this morning. Said he wanted you to do a big part in his new picture. We have a new contract for you.
Gosh, will this mean more money?
Yes, the front office has worked it out. 7 years. We start at $325. Auctions every 6 months. Finally steps you up to $2,000 a week. And it's a good contract, Mike.
You can bet I won't quibble over terms.
$2,000 a week.
And Michael Craven became a name for lights and fan magazines and autograph albums over the land. Michael Craven was seen at all the right big restaurants with the right people and photographed at previews with the right young ingenues. Michael Craven appeared in good pictures. But Michael Craven also appeared on the list of every salesman in California.
You've got to put up a good front, Mike. I know a big house seems unnecessary, but the public...
No immediate investment is necessary, Mr. Craven. This land will pay for itself in 5 years.
$1,000 doesn't mean much to you, old boy, but thanks. I'll pay it back when I get on my feet again.
Your income tax will run about 45% this year, Mike.
Oh, you can't look like a tightwad, Mike, when the whole country knows the dough you're pulling down. And if you get the yacht now, maybe we can use it in your next picture.
The country is entering a period of unbroken prosperity. Now I have a good thing. The speculation, of course.
The years that followed the World War. A few of us used to say, I wonder what ever happened to Michael Craven. Gosh, he was a good actor in his time. But we had our own headaches, our own heartaches, our own triumphs. And one evening, a great American star came out of the studio gates. A star who'd performed the extraordinary feat of being a world-famed actress and remaining a warm-hearted human being.
Pencils, miss?
Pencil? Oh, yes, I guess I could use a pencil. Here. Why, Mike Craven.
Oh, Mary. Yes, Michael Craven's the name, but don't worry, these are good pencils.
Mike.
Oh, this is only temporary, you see. Almost like a gag, Mary. Only this morning I saw Blackburn. He spoke about a suitable part for me.
Surely, Mike, surely. It won't be long before I'll see you back at work again. Well, thanks for the pencil, and good night.
Mary Pickford rode home carrying 2 yellow and red pencils held tight in her hand. She dropped them into a box on her dressing table. Mike Craven. Only a great star could understand how money is drained away from the actor who suddenly finds a place in the spotlight. But Mike Craven selling pencils outside a studio gate. And sitting there, looking at those tragic yellow and red pencils, the star who had everything began to think about those who had nothing. There must be 1,000 men like Mike Craven. Now we have some money left from the Red Cross Ambulance Fund, she thought. Why shouldn't we create an ambulance fund for all the people of our profession, the picture professions? And as she sat there looking at the red and yellow pencils lying on the plate glass top of her dressing table, Mary Pickford began to dream of the plan that was to create the Motion Picture Relief Fund. She put that plan into execution and became founder of the fund. And before long, Michael Craven's card went into a casting director that he'd known in days gone by. And after it came the actor, well-dressed now, confident again, carrying his fine gray head high.
Well, it isn't much, Mike. $50 for the part. It's a great deal. It's the thing I've been looking for. The chance.
And thank you, Miss Pickford, for sending me behind the scenes of my studio to find that yarn. You know, you said I could find the heart of Hollywood when I met the forgotten people of Hollywood. You know, there must be a great deal more to that story.
Yes, there is. But how can I tell it as simply and as honestly as I feel it? You see, after the war, we had a few $1,000s left over from our Red Cross work. And because already in Hollywood there were hundreds of people who had done their work well, but were being forgotten in the first great rush of a new industry, we turned that money into the Motion Picture Relief Fund. You see, the country was only reading about the ermine and diamonds the stars were wearing. But we who knew the heart of Hollywood knew about all the Michael Cravens and the makeup men and the grips and carpenters and bit men and all those others who had had their hour. We tried to make it like a sort of a spiritual ambulance. And when the cry for help came, we tried to answer. And today, as a new year starts, we have found an answer that delights us all. The creation of a home that will be more like a club, one with wide green lawns and spacious verandas and lovely gardens, where the actors and actresses and all those who serve the public well may have rest, peace, and happiness when the years have passed and they have finished their work in the studios. The men and women who have made the moving picture world possible. The hundreds who have stood in the shadows while one star received the spotlight. And it is here that I wish to thank the actors and actresses, the writers and directors of our industry for their generous cooperation with the Gulf companies in bringing to America a radio program whose purpose is not only to entertain, but to serve the men and women of our profession as well. And if you will accept it, a message to you who listen in along the air lanes to tell you that the new Gulf radio programs will not only serve to bring new entertainment to the country, but will be a tremendous lot of fun for us who will work in them. And with that, I'll turn the microphone back to John Nesbitt and bow myself out of the show.
Thank you, Mary Pickford, and good night. As one of the people who's been deeply interested in the development of a form of entertainment that would combine the finest of talent for the finest of causes, my own best wishes for great success. And although we shall have many famous people to thank for these new programs, first thanks of all must go to an extraordinary woman, sincere and beautiful Miss Mary Pickford.
Mary Pickford, I started at 8 o'clock this morning to finish your book. I couldn't put it down. I could have read it this afternoon, but I found it so intensely interesting, so intensely warm and human, and you expressed yourself so beautifully, and I know that you wrote it yourself, every word of it. A little editing maybe from someone else, but it is your book. What made you decide to write it?
Well, I'd been thinking about it, Rudy, for many years. And then, in 1950, I decided as my New Year's resolution that I would sit me down on the 1st of January, come cold weather or hot, and start dictating. And I did, 150 words a minute, from January 1st until the 16th of June, 1951.
And you had to throw away about 50,000 words as it was.
Actually, 59,000.
I'll take those words.
The amazing thing that stood out for me in the book was the early age that you showed the brilliance of a corporation motion picture lawyer, the way you advised Zukor and Griffith and all the rest, the things you did in your early Belasco days about demanding sets and costumes and things. It's just amazing how a child of 13, even before that, you were directing things and really running those theaters.
Well, Rudy, it's very kind of you to give me the screen credit, but actually it was my mother. I had the most, one of the most wonderful mothers in the world. She was a good mother, but she was a brilliant woman. And don't think she was lenient with me. I mean, she wasn't. She was a strict disciplinarian.
No, I discovered that from reading the book. And reading about the Griffith paying you, was it $10 a day?
Because I was a Belasco actress. Yes.
Why did you honestly feel that it was a disgrace, more or less, to perform in pictures? Was that really the feeling at that
Rudy,
time?
dear, I think you're too young to remember what a disgrace it was.
Well, I had no connection with the legitimate theater, so that's why I wouldn't remember.
I longed for a great beard, you know, and a mustache, and a wig to creep into the Biograph studio, hoping that no one would see me, because it was the greatest disgrace possible to be seen in a motion picture.
You know, you speak of age. I think I'm not very much younger than you are. I used to project a great many pictures during the years 19, 18, and 19, cranking by hand for $7 a week, but I don't recall having ever projected one of your pictures. I did a lot of Jack's and Lottie's pictures, but not yours, and apparently our little Star Theater couldn't afford your films.
Well, Rudy, I wasn't going to say that you were on the wrong side of the tracks, but I think you were. You see, probably it's because I demanded $10 a day from Griffith instead of $5. That I was moved on the other side of the tracks. That could be, you know.
That our films were too expensive for the
That's
Star
right,
Theater.
yes.
That's very, very...
$35 a week more, you know, it's a lot of money.
In those days particularly. When did you first come to the realization that you had become a star?
Oh, I don't know. Probably when the audience responded to me when I was a baby. You know, it's wonderful, this medium which we are using tonight, in TV and motion pictures. Nothing can take the place of the theater and the presence of an audience, because to me they're an integral part of the performance, and no two performances are alike. And to me, nothing can take its place. Of course, a great personality like D.W. Griffith, Cecil B. DeMille, some of our great and outstanding directors, they try to supply it, but they don't. They can't. And when that curtain goes up, and you know, Rudy, as you know so well, you're out there on your own. Nobody can help you.
Very much so.
They cannot stop the camera any more than we can stop this medium tonight, if I stutter.
It's there.
It's there. And so it is with the theater. And I've always missed it. I've missed the presence of an audience.
I'm glad you brought one little point out. Our program tonight is live. A great many people assume we tape this show. Anything that happens here is done, and it's irrevocable. What would you consider the greatest movie, the most, not successful, but perhaps the finest, not artistic necessarily, but the best thing you think you ever did in films? What
I?
Yes. Of all the many
I'll
films
tell you the worst one I did.
Well, tell us the worst and then the best.
I think, without doubt, Rosita was the worst picture I ever did and the worst I ever saw.
You played a guitar in that, as I recall.
Oh, please don't recall that.
A picture of you playing the guitar.
Oh, yes.
In the book.
And, well, I told Buddy how bad it was. My buddy.
Before you married him or after?
Naturally, after. And we saw it at Pixar. See, we have a projection, we have 2 projection machines, and he said, yes, darling,
but I think it was a great understatement.
Well, what was your best then? Tell us what was your best.
What
do you think was the most outstanding?
Well, I've never liked, as I say in my book, Sunshine and Shadow. Rudy, I've never liked any one of my pictures in its entirety.
That's amazing.
No, it's the truth. I loved Rebecca. I loved Daddy Longlegs. I loved Fauntleroy. Why I decided to play the mother and a little boy, I don't even know today. Now, that is something... nobody twisted my arm, either. No, I think... And Coquette, I
You
love.
seem to lean a little more towards the Daddy Longlegs in the book, as I recall it. You seem to feel that was one of the...
No, I think Tess of the Storm Country, because she has a lot of my bad qualities.
Oh, that's impossible.
Rudy?
Yes, Mary Pickford?
Did I tell you, the first time that I heard your voice, I hadn't met you, but it was when I made the tour around the world. It was in the Red Sea, and the most beautiful full moon, and of course tropical weather, and your voice rang out over that ship.
My nasal voice rang out.
Sir, you had us all enthralled. First, second cabin, and I don't know whether there was third, but there were no cabins. There were just listeners.
Well, Crosby and Colombo hadn't come on the scene, and that's understandable.
You're much too modest. I'm still your loyal fan, you know, as I dedicated my book to you tonight. I still am.
Well, it's always pleasant hearing a comment of that nature. Noel Coward made me feel very flattered and very happy when he told me that he was down in Africa and had a little machine on the back of a boat that he was in the ocean somewhere and listened to some of the early recordings that I made in 29 or 30. It's always most pleasant. It's probably as gratifying to me as it is to you to have somebody tell you about a film on the old biograph thing that they might have seen in the old days, some particular scene they remembered. I'm sure that your book is so wonderful. I again want to say that Doubleday deserve a paean of praise for publishing your book, Sunshine and Shadow, and I sincerely hope that the ads that I've been seeing in the papers today are going to attract a lot of the people to read it and enjoy it and derive so much, particularly your wonderful inspirational thought near the end, your very fine inspirational thoughts about, well, what happens when death strikes and all the things that can happen to a person, how you survive them, and the philosophy and the very fine work you've done for the Home for the Jewish Aged that you and I have had the privilege of appearing in the Biltmore Bowl. I read the wire that you sent me last time that you couldn't make it when I emceed the show for Ida Mayer Cummings. It's a wonderful cause, and you've been of a great help to it.
Well, I think that Jew and Gentile have to stand together today against the forces that are against God. And I see no difference. Those of us who love God have to band together. And that's why I, as the old people call me, I'm a shiksa. Which means I'm a Gentile girl.
You expressed it beautifully in your book, and I sincerely hope that everybody gets a copy of your book, Sunshine and Shadow.
Oh, well, man, I'm just not appreciated around here. Dirt under their feet, that's all I am. They'll learn, I'll show them.
Why, what's bothering you now, Charlie?
Oh, you know very well. You know, Don, I'm not a man who asks for much.
What do you mean you don't ask for much?
Oh, all right, then I ask, but I don't get much.
What's on your mind now, Charlie?
Well, to put it briefly, I would a word with Mary Pickford. Haven't spoken to her since, let me see. Oh, it's a long time.
Yes. You mean you've never talked to Mary Pickford?
Well, that's a long time, isn't it? Maybe Mary Pickford wants to meet me.
Oh, I'm sure she does. She's probably crazy about you.
Yeah, well, now you're warmer than you think you are.
Is that so?
Yeah. Of course, I don't want you to spread this around, but she just married Buddy Rogers on the bounce.
Oh, now.
Yeah, she did.
On the bounce? Yeah. How can you say that?
Well, as soon as she met Rogers, she gave me the bounce.
Oh, I see.
I think she married Buddy just to spite me. Girls will do it, you know.
Yes. Come now, Charlie.
We used to be very good friends, Miss Pickford and I. I'll never forget the first time we met. I think it was in India. I was returning wounded from a pig sticking.
Wounded from pig sticking?
Yeah, I got stuck by mistake, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Bombay or was it Calcutta?
Probably neither one.
I think it was, yes. Now, let me see. Yes, we were both house guests of the Maharaja and the Maharani. and their lovely daughter, the Maharara.
Maharara.
Yeah, college girl.
Oh, I see.
Edgar, this is too good. I must tell Miss Pickford.
That's a good idea, Don. Just repeat Charlie's remarks about her. His embarrassment might teach him a lesson.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Oh, true pals, true pals. If I'm lying, may someone stick a knife in my back.
Is there anyone back there? No.
Miss Pickford, have you ever seen this young lad before?
Oh, yes. Hello, Charlie, my dear boy. I'm so glad to see you again.
Do you really know who I am?
Of course I do.
Oh.
I just want you to know how very much I've enjoyed your carefree wit.
Oh, my wit, eh? Well, meet my other half here. Mr. Bergen.
How do you do? And what does Mr. Bergen do, Charlie?
What is he? Oh, oh boy, I've often wondered.
Well, really, Miss Pickford, I do very little, but I do try to make a gentleman of Charlie. He handles the truth rather carelessly. He was giving us a tall story about having met you in India.
Yeah, well, I was all...
Charlie, how could you say a thing like that? India, indeed. Now, you know very well it was Baden-Baden, and let me see, and then again in Pango.
Of course, indeed. I get it. Double talk, huh? Oh, come, let's talk about those days. Won't you sit down, Miss Pickford?
Oh, yes, thank you. But where?
Well, Bergen's other knee, you know. We just use them around here to sit on. Did you have a pleasant trip from Honolulu on the China Clipper, Miss Pickford?
One of the most glorious adventures of my life, Charlie. Oh. The China Clipper is simply marvelous.
Oh, it's nothing, really nothing. Wait till you see my plane, the McCarthy Clipper. And boom down.
I didn't realize you were a flyer, Charlie.
Oh, yes, indeed. I'm a born flyer. I fly by instinct.
How splendid.
Yes. Last time I flew by instinct, I was lost for 24 days.
I was perfectly fascinated by the instruments on the China Clipper.
Oh, it's all very simple. I have some of them on my plane, too, you know.
And all those various levers, too.
Oh, yes. Everyone. I'm a lover of levers.
Yes.
I have a lever for oil, a lever for gasoline, a cab's lever. Oh, no. And a lever for coffee.
Now, Charlie, coffee doesn't make airplanes go.
No, but it keeps Bergen and me going. Mary, wouldn't you like to fly with me sometime?
I'd love to.
What say a trip to Mexico City in the moonlight?
Marvelous.
Would you, dear?
Oh, I'm thrilled to think of it.
Oh, what fun we'd have. Eh, Lenny Pie?
Just we two?
Yes, precious, all alone.
No, I don't think I can, Charlie.
It's
too late.
It's too late? Why?
You see, Buddy already knows all.
But how could he? You mean you told him?
Oh, no. But he's listening in this very minute.
Oh, my. Oh, Mrs. Rogers, a jest is good for all of us, isn't it? Only fooling, Buddy. What sort of a fellow is Buddy?
Oh, very tall. 6 feet 2.
Oh, yeah.
And too jealous.
That's too terrible. That's my station. Too.
What we need, and need desperately today, is a rallying point on which we all can agree. We need some action in which everyone can take part. Certainly, an aroused, a united America can preserve this nation's security against every possible contingency. We may disagree violently among ourselves on many other things, but everyone of every shade of opinion knows we live in a world in which force is dominant. Everyone of every shade of opinion is agreed that we must work to the limit for an invincible national defense. I am confident the American people are agreed on this, but it cannot be done unless we are united in its achievement. First of all, we must be united in that purpose. More than that, we must remember how nations are defended and preserved. They are not preserved by arms alone.
They are not preserved by material things alone. An army can be no stronger than the people it protects. In the defense of this nation, there is not and there never will be any division.
This lady originated and founded the Motion Picture Relief Fund. She was one of the founders of the United Artists, one of the original 5 founders of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. She's now a director in our own Hollywood Museum. Her appearance here today is also as the representative of the Thomas Alva Edison Foundation, of which she is a trustee. The renowned sweetheart of the world, Mary Pickford. Come, Mary, share this podium with me.
That's good. That's lovely.
1 second, please. I should like our friends to know that Mary's husband, Buddy Rogers, is sitting here in the audience. Won't you stand up, Buddy, so we all might see you? Blow him a kiss. Thank you. I'll leave it in.
Why? Thank you, Saul, for that very lovely introduction. I'm very pleased and happy today, yes, and proud, to be able to stand here and thank Saul Lesser personally for his great dedicated work for this museum. He has not spared himself day or night. In fact, I firmly believe the museum would be many years away had it not been for him. I want to thank Superintendent Debs also, Supervisor rather, for his contribution. It was invaluable to us, very necessary, and to all those dedicated people who stood in back of Saul Lesser. This is a great day for us, you know, here in Hollywood. It's going to, well, I don't think there is any place in the world that has a museum such as this will be, with the 4 mediums under one roof. And as someone said earlier, long after we're gone, this museum will go ahead and continue to be a great influence. It isn't a museum only of yesterday, nor today, but it is of tomorrow. And that's why I'm so pleased to see so many young people taking an interest, because they will profit by the mistakes that we have made and will continue to go forward. It reminds me of a running brook, always being refreshed, and certainly not a stagnant pool. I'm very pleased to bring the message to you from the Honorable Charles Edison, son of Thomas Alva Edison, who is delighted with the museum and sends his greetings to you, Saul, and to all who have worked on the museum, and to you, ladies and gentlemen. And he wants to assure us all that he will continue. He and the board of directors and trustees will continue throughout the years to give their most enthusiastic support. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very nice.
From Mutual's Hollywood Studios, we present the Salvation Army picturization of the Nativity, featuring 2 of Hollywood's most beloved personalities, Ronald Coleman and Mary Pickford. Bethlehem, under a starlit heaven. Bethlehem, cradle of the race. City of David, host to the Judean thousands. Host also to angelic choirs, humble shepherds, and princely travelers from the east. For on this Christmas night, Bethlehem has seen a star, a comet-like star, such as heralds the birth of a king or the death of a prince. And the little city is bright from the reflected glory of its light. Speculation runs rife as philosophers, astronomers, prophets, even kings attempt to unravel the mystery of the strange, bright orb. Little do they know that the object of this heavenly courier lies swaddled in a manger, a new baby born in poverty, whose parents, Mary and Joseph, look affectionately upon him as he sleeps.
How sweetly he sleeps.
He does not know that princes from the east have brought him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, or that heavenly choirs have sent anthems ringing from the sky.
Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold for our journey into Egypt and safety. For already those whom he came to love seek to vent their hatred upon him.
Ah, do not worry, Mary. Our son will be safe. This night angelic visitors came to me. Their message is one of encouragement, but...
They told you? It came to you also?
In a vision, sanctified by divine presence. Just as they came to you that night in the temple at Jerusalem.
I shall never forget. It was a silent, starlit night, such as this. Dawn was afar off, and the temple was asleep. I had lingered in my prayers when a mysterious sign appeared in the awesome silence. It was as if the room had suddenly been strewn with palm branches. Unseen choirs sang heavenly symphonies, and the air was fanned by winds which wafted rich perfumes. My humble little cot seemed to be covered with rose petals and violets. Then came the voice, which, taking up the heavenly canticle, said, Mary, blessed art thou among women. And then all was silent and still.
Did you hear the voice again?
Once more. This time it said, And thou shalt bring forth a son, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, and Mighty God, the Prince of Peace.
The Prince of Peace.
See how sweetly he sleeps.
Yes, but strange shadows have crossed my path. Soon we must leave Bethlehem. We must take our son to a place of safety.
Your words are spoken with firmness, Joseph.
I, too, have entertained the heavenly visitor.
Pray, Joseph, what was your vision?
I saw a sky of clear, unbroken blue. Only one white wisp of cloud looked through its azure curtain. A kindly sun beamed down upon a world of people at peace. Then, suddenly the earth shuddered under the impact of hate. The sky was blackened by strange flying implements of war. Blasts of smoke and flame sent death and destruction across the landscape. Great masses of humanity moved against each other, and the meadows ran deep in blood.
How dreadful.
Then the scene became quiet again, and the smoke of battle disappeared, like the mist rising from the earth. It was the same quiet countryside again, and I looked up once more to behold a blue, friendly sky. The little white cloud was there also, and as I watched, it slowly changed form and took the shape of a cross.
A cross. Dear God, a cross.
It was as if the cross became the kindly form of a man, with arms outstretched, as if in friendship and helpfulness. Slowly, I saw the words form in the heavens. They read, Jesus, Prince of Peace. Then the voice.
Yes, Joseph?
I heard it say, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased."
Our son, our very own.
Nay, not our very own, for he also belongs to God.
And soon he shall belong to the world.
Love and happiness he shall bring. And the nations will always remember this day of his birth. It shall become a day of friendship. Heavenly anthems shall ring through the sky. And on this day shall peace come to mankind. All peoples will worship his name.
Our baby's name, Jesus, Prince of Peace.
Thank you, Mary Pickford and Ronald Coleman, for your interpretation of the Nativity Scene.
From the diplomatic reception room in the White House in your nation's capital, the Blue Network brings you a special broadcast in behalf of the 1944 March of Dimes campaign. Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt will interview Miss Mary Pickford, chairman of the March of Dimes National Women's Division. Mrs. Roosevelt.
We're fortunate, I think, to have with us this afternoon a lovely and gracious lady whom you all know and admire, I'm sure, as I do, Miss Mary Pickford.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Mrs. Roosevelt, and to have this opportunity to talk with you about our plans for the 1944 March of Dimes before I leave to visit the women workers in the infantile paralysis campaign in other parts of the country.
First of all, Miss Pickford, I want to congratulate you on your new appointment as chairman of the Women's Division of the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis.
Thank you very much. I consider the appointment a great honor. I have always been interested in the fight against infantile paralysis, but I became particularly aware of its full horror out in California during last summer's epidemic. And many other women all over the country have had the experience of witnessing what infantile paralysis means when it strikes home. I'm sure they are as anxious as I am to do whatever they can to help the fight this terrible disease.
There is no doubt of that. Women particularly are concerned with the treatment and control of this disease. All women everywhere are interested, no matter what else they are doing. And I know they're pretty busy these days. It's remarkable, isn't it, how women have taken war jobs and are doing so many things they never would have dreamed they could do before the war.
Yes, that's true. But there are lots of women who can't take actual war jobs for one reason or another. They, especially, can be of great assistance to us in connection with the March of Dimes.
Not they alone, Miss Pickford. No matter how busy women may be with other activities, they will find time to work for a worthy cause like this.
I wonder, Mrs. Roosevelt, how many people realize the connection between the fight against polio and war production.
Just how do you mean that, Miss Pickford?
Well, last year's infantile paralysis epidemic is an excellent case in point. There were over 12,000 cases. As you know, it hit us particularly hard out in California. A great many of the victims were war workers or children of war workers. That meant hours and days of work lost, and that much lost production. And not only that, when war workers are laid up with other sicknesses, they come back to work again after a few days and pick up where they left off. But infantile paralysis victims often are helplessly disabled for months, years, or even for life.
You know, Miss Pickford, I think one of the hardest jobs in our fight against infantile paralysis is an educational one. The more people know about anything, the better able they are to act when they have to. If all of us realize the constant danger of infantile paralysis and learn to face it, we could do more about it. Fortunately, today, there are some things we can do about it, thanks to the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis.
I don't think it should be too difficult a job to enlist women this year. We've all learned a lot about facing our responsibilities in the last couple of years, especially women who've had to think and act for themselves on their own more than ever before. I believe they are ready and willing to shoulder any added responsibility that may come their way.
I must say that those who have responded to their country's call in the armed forces and all along the production front have admirable records. Just what you have in mind, may I ask, for the women who are to be lined up in this infantile paralysis fight?
Well, we have a number of ideas. First, of course, we'll be arranging to have our women's division help collect donations in movie theaters all over the country.
What does that entail, Miss Pickford?
Theater owners have graciously agreed to cooperate with us again this year. But there still is a good bit to be done in the way of arranging for women's committees to handle the actual solicitations. You see, it is a more involved problem this year. Theaters are understaffed like every other civilian enterprise. In many cases, where they used their own ushers and employees to make collections last year, they will be unable to do so this year. Therefore, the need for volunteer women workers is greater than it ever has been.
I'm confident that with you at the head of the National Women's Division, Miss Pickford, there'll be a genuine and widespread response to the appeal for women solicitors in the motion picture theaters.
It's very kind of you to say that, Mrs. Roosevelt. But actually, I have no special qualifications for the job. It's simply one of many volunteer jobs that all of us have to do. And I have chosen it as my field for whatever contribution I can make. When it was offered to me, I felt, here is one way in which I can do something on the home front, for the duration and afterward.
Certainly, we're all very grateful to you for taking on the job, Miss Pickford. I know your motion picture producing takes up a good deal of your time, to say nothing of the other morale-building work you're doing. Would you care to tell us a little more about the motion picture theater solicitation you spoke of?
I'd like to very much, Mrs. Roosevelt. Perhaps it may point the way to some women who are listening to this broadcast and who may want to help. In the first place, my friend, Miss Greer Garson, again has made a short picture for the infantile paralysis campaign. Our goal is to have 15,000 theaters all over the country exhibited at every performance during the week of January 24th. That should bring our story home forcibly to the movie-going public.
How many of your women's committees will there be?
Every county will have its own chairman of women's division. It will be this chairman's duty to line up as many volunteer workers as may be needed. If any of you women listening in would like to get in touch with your county women's chairman and don't know who she is, please wire or write me at the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, 120 Broadway, New York City, and I will send you her name.
How much time do these women volunteers have to agree to give to this work?
Just as much time as they are able to give, Mrs. Roosevelt. They can pretty much make the job suit their own convenience. That's why I would be most surprised if we didn't get all the volunteers we need. You see, this is ideal work for married women with young children, women who are not working in war plants and who can't devote a full 8 hours a day to volunteer service, should welcome the opportunity to do something constructive that does not consume too much time.
I think you're quite right. These women can agree to cover afternoon or evening performances in nearby theaters and thereby do their bit without cutting into their home or other activities to any extent.
Exactly, Mrs. Roosevelt. It would indeed be a wonderful thing if we had a corps of women volunteer workers.
You've presented a challenging picture, Miss Pickford, and I'm sure that women everywhere will respond with the same wholehearted enthusiasm and efficiency with which they've met every other challenge the war has imposed so far. Our time is almost up now. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
Just one thing, Mrs. Roosevelt. The National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis has a wonderful record of achievement behind it. I hope I've shown you today that with the aid of the American public, we'll be able to cope with epidemics even more efficiently in the future. And so, women of America, I cannot urge you too strongly to volunteer to do whatever you can in this fight against infantile paralysis. Your dimes and dollars are needed to carry on the great work of the National Foundation. Your time and your skill could not be better used than in the humanitarian work of lending a helping hand during epidemics. I thank you.
Thank you, Miss Pickford.
For the past quarter hour...